Hey everyone, my name is Katie Robertson. I'm the founder and director for the Anchor Gathering, and this is the Anchor Moment, and I want to tell you a little bit about what that is. It's a time we get to hear from a guest a little bit about their life, their faith journey, and an anchor moment. And that is a time that someone has had their faith grounded and they've seen Jesus for real in their lives. So we are so excited at this time you get to hear firsthand a personal story from one of our guests, and we hope that you'll be encouraged.
Hi, my name is Amy Evans. I have been married to my husband Kyle for almost 19 years. We have 3 boys, Ethan, Declan, and Logan, who are ages 12, 10, and brand new 7-year-olds. So things are crazy in my house. My husband is currently one of the executive pastors at our church, and so I'm heavily involved there, involved with women's ministry and caring for the staff and our team. I came to know Jesus as a child. I was 9 years old, and by His grace, I always had a heart for Him and a desire to know Him more. And my faith kind of steadily grew from there. I met my husband Kyle in college, and that started an incredible journey in our life of trusting God and living boldly into the things that He called us to do, which was totally different than what we had dreamed for our life. So we were both on a strong business track when we got married, and several years into marriage, God called us into full-time ministry. We did youth ministry for 5.5 years. We lived overseas as missionaries, 1 year in Slovenia, 5 years in the Czech Republic. And now we are back at our church, and he is serving as executive pastor. And it's a journey I never could have imagined, but there's been so much blessing in trusting God and having that faith to take those steps of obedience when He has asked us. And He's given us this incredible adventure that is far beyond anything I could have ever dreamed of, and I'm so grateful. A huge anchor moment came for me when I was in college. So as I said, I was already a believer in Jesus, but what I was totally blind to was the fact that I was gripped by people-pleasing and perfectionism. I carried that right into college with me, and I went to a Christian university. In my second year at school, I was in my first official ministry position. I was on my floor. It was my job to lead the floor Bible study and decorate the prayer room. They had one of these on each of the floors, and it was a little room that students could get away from their roommate and have a little quiet time, a little prayer time. It was my job to decorate it. So there was someone in my role on all of the floors in my dorm. And in the days leading up to the students arriving to campus and moving in, I felt gripped with fear about what these girls were going to think of me. And really, I had a ton of fear about what they were going to think of my prayer room that I had decorated, because I am not a natural decorator by nature. And I got the room set up, and then I started looking at all the other prayer rooms and comparing myself to what the other floor leaders in this role were doing. I felt fearful that they were going to be disappointed. I felt ashamed that I hadn't created the best, most beautiful space for them to enjoy quiet time. And I had never led a Bible study before, so I was totally nervous what they were going to think of that. I was just gripped. So the night that I was supposed to lead my first Bible study on my floor, an event had just ended on campus, and I was dreading walking back to my dorm. So I decided to just waste some time and avoid it. And I saw a friend that had served in this role the year before me. I walked up to her and I said hi. She said, "How are you doing?" And I burst into tears. Something broke inside me in that moment. So needless to say, I canceled the floor Bible study that night. And this sweet friend and another girl took me and encouraged me, allowed me to process with them, poured God's truth into my heart. And in that moment, God just took blinders off my eyes. And this is what He showed me. He showed me that I had been living to please other people over God. I was heartbroken. I loved God. That is not what I wanted to do, but it was in fact what I was doing. I was not living in my identity in Christ, but I was letting my value be defined by my worry and fear and assumptions about what other people thought of me. The interesting thing about people pleasing and perfectionism, and really any sin struggle, is it comes with a boatload of shame. I was trying to measure up. I was trying to, have it all together. I was trying to meet everybody's needs and never let a friend down, which of course is impossible. So I just felt the weight and the chains of shame. But in this moment, God broke those chains. And this is what he showed me. He reminded me who I am in him and what he thinks of not only me, but of all of us. We are fully loved. We are fully forgiven. He nailed all of our sin and shame to the cross. And we can walk in the freedom that he offers us. He introduced me and led me to 2 verses in that season that have been my most quoted and are still some of my all-time favorites. Psalm 34:5 says, "Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered in shame." Radiant, isn't that such a beautiful word? There is no place for shame in radiant. And when I lived in who he wanted me to be, and I reoriented my priorities, it was God first, not other people. And it can't be both. So even though I loved them both, only one can be in that number one spot. And when I put God back in that number one spot, it changed everything for me. It changed how I saw him. It changed how I saw myself. And it changed how I related to those around me. Because when I was walking in my identity in Christ, living for Jesus alone and not worried about what anybody else thought of me, I felt free. I felt more joy than I have ever felt before. I felt more hope and more peace. I literally physically felt lighter, like a burden had been lifted off of me. I kind of pictured, like a little girl playing in a field of wildflowers with not a care in the world, just spinning and dancing and singing or splashing in the waves, whatever that place might be for you, of total freedom. That is how I felt in that moment when God showed me this. So the other verse he led me to is this, Galatians 5:1. It says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Therefore, do not submit again to a yoke of slavery." Perfectionism and people-pleasing are slavery. Any sin struggle that grips us and keeps us from walking fully in who God made us to be is slavery. Now, God is absolutely big enough to completely free people from a sin struggle. I've seen him do it. I know it's possible. But sometimes he actually chooses to allow that struggle to continue because it keeps us on our hands and knees before him. It keeps us relying on him. And he was so kind to me in this season of my life when he was showing all of this to me to help me realize this will be something I'm going to have to battle. This is going to be a struggle I am going to have to fight. But what he showed me is the compass due north. I knew what that freedom looked like. And so now when I start to feel that grip coming and I start to feel the priorities getting out of order and I'm starting to worry about what people think, I can be quick to recognize it, to confess it and surrender it and step back into that full freedom he offers us. And he offers this to all of us. And it is life-changing when you fully step into it.